everyone, welcome back to the Murder Tapes podcast, episode 4. I cannot believe we're already on episode 4, that's kind of crazy, but I mentioned in the last episode that I was going to update y'all about how my boyfriend's birthday went. It went really well. We actually ended up having a really nice dinner with friends, although our server ended up forgetting about our tables, so we ended up getting free drinks and dessert, which actually made a huge difference because our original total was like $240 and it brought it down to like $80, so that was pretty nice. We also got to go to the Blue Genie Art Bazaar pop-up. I've been seeing so many TikToks about it. If you're from Austin or you've lived in Austin for a while, you've probably heard of it, but they had a lot of cool artwork, and I ended up getting a vampire print that I'm really excited to add to our vintage wall because we have like a bunch of old vintage style paintings and vampire-ish artwork, so I'm excited for it. As for his gifts, I can finally talk about what I got him since his birthday passed, but I ended up getting him tickets to the Harry Potter live orchestra concert because he is quite literally the biggest Harry Potter fan there is. And then I'm kind of sad because it's not until February, but it's really cool. They basically just play the movie on a big screen and then the live orchestra plays to the scenes in the movie. So I'm pretty excited about it because I love a live orchestra. Also, the tickets were way more expensive than I thought they would be, but I'm excited for it all. I'm excited to dress up and be able to actually enjoy it. But that wasn't all. I also got him an embroidered Scarface shirt because he loves the movie. And of course, I had to get him cake, so I got him his favorite German chocolate. Aside from that, though, my little brother is also staying with us for the week because my mom is actually on a cruise right now. So it's been kind of chaotic. A lot of things have been happening, and I've been trying to release as many episodes as possible while also providing high quality episodes. So anyways, let's move into today's case. Today we're going to be discussing the Za'Zell Preston case, also known as the Christmas murder. And I actually just recently found out about this case, which is kind of surprising. I do quickly want to add a little disclaimer that there is mention of domestic violence, so please be advised. Za'Zell Preston and her boyfriend William Wallace began dating in 2008. She had 2 daughters from other relationships that were 9 and 4, and 1 infant son that she had just given birth to a little while before her death. Before we get into her murder, we're going to talk about the many incidents of domestic violence that occurred throughout their relationship. The first time the violence occurred was when William beat her so badly that her mother and best friend claimed that she was unrecognizable. Her eyes and cheeks were swollen, and her hair appeared to have been ripped out. Upon checking into the hospital, the doctors noted that she had a bruised nose, 2 black eyes, swelling on both of her cheeks and her head, swollen elbows, and marks on her neck. This incident, like many others that we'll see in this case, was not reported to police, and it would not be the last time that he abused her. Not too long after, in July of that same year, William interrupted Za'Zell while she was taking a bath. He was drunk and began to yell at her. She then proceeded to get out of the bathtub when William came up to her and grabbed her by her hair with one hand and used his other hand to grab her by her neck. He then slammed her head against the bathroom wall, and while she was losing consciousness, he began to drag her by her hair to their bedroom, where he proceeded to rip out her hair and knock her to the ground. Once she hit the floor, he got on top of her and began strangling her with one hand and punching her in the face with his other. William then told her that he was going to kill her. She was in and out of consciousness still when she began to fight back by scratching his face, torso, and arms after begging him to let her live. He then decided to let her go, and she ran to their infant child's room in order to pick it up. She believed that if she was holding their baby, he would leave her alone, but unfortunately, he demanded her to let go of the baby or he would proceed to kill her. She put the baby down and quickly ran out of the apartment in order to contact police. William had managed to escape just before police arrived, but came back home just the next day. Luckily, police were notified when he returned, and he was arrested. He pleaded guilty to misdemeanor domestic violence and was put in custody for 19 days. Not too long after, he was put back into custody from November 2008 to October 2010 for commercial burglary and a drug offense. Za'Zell proceeded to visit him and write him letters, which led them to continue their relationship when he was taken out of custody. This led the abuse to continue, and one of their neighbors would later testify that they heard them argue every day. Just 2 months later, at 4 a.m. on December 23, 2010, police arrived back at their apartment due to a disturbance call reporting fighting and arguing. It took a total of 5 minutes for Za'Zell to answer the door, which concerned police officers. She told them that it was only her and her kids in the apartment and that everything was fine. However, when police went inside, they found William hiding in their closet. He was then arrested for violating a domestic violence protective order that prohibited him seeing her. He pled guilty and was put back into custody until January 6 of 2011. He was then issued a new protective order and put on informal probation, which is pretty unfortunate because if you're unaware, informal probation is the lowest form of probation because it does not require supervision, meaning you do not need to report to a probation officer. All you have to do is pledge to not commit any crimes, which, let's be serious, anyone that is beating their girlfriend is of course going to say, I'm not going to commit any crimes, but they will continue to. Also pay a fine and serve the time that you were sentenced. This is also a type of probation that is used for low-risk offenders, but Williams is definitely not a low-risk offender. 3 months later, in April of 2011, a police officer was conducting a traffic stop when he stopped Za'Zell. William was in the passenger seat when the officer did a record check and found out that there was a domestic violence protective order that meant William had to stay away from her. However, Za'Zell told the officer that she didn't want him to be arrested. In fact, she mentioned that she had actually been trying to remove it, but that they would not let her. Regardless of her attempt to not get him in trouble, he was arrested and pleaded guilty. After being in custody from April 2011 to July 2011, he was put on informal probation once more. Za'Zell ended up going to court to have the protective order modified to permit peaceful contact. This essentially means that they both can stay in contact with each other as long as they agreed to have peaceful interactions. But this change would allow the cycle to continue, and on August of 2011, while she was pregnant with their son, she made a phone call to her mom. She was begging for her help frantically, and she had told her mom that she ran as far as she could and collapsed. Her mom then drove to her and stated that she was trembling and shaking on the sidewalk. When her mom asked her what happened, she replied that William beat her again and told her that he would kill her. Her mother told her that she needed to contact authorities, but she claimed if she did, he told her that he would kill her. This was once again not reported to police, which can be a problem as the abuse escalates, because there is no court record. Not too long after, however, William failed to enroll and complete a court-ordered domestic violence class, which led to his arrest in October of 2011. Another incident presented in court took place in the summer of 2011, when her mom claimed that Za'Zell called her after being beaten by William again. She also told her mom that she fled their apartment and hid in a convenience store restroom. Her mother claimed that Za'Zell would call her on 5 different occasions asking for help after being beaten by William. In fact, her mother wasn't the only person that she would contact. Her grandmother was also aware of what was going on. Za'Zell's mom mentioned that one time the beating was so horrible that her eardrum was injured and she had to go straight to the hospital. Each time she contacted her mom, she made it known that she wasn't allowed to call the police or she would be killed by him or his friends in prison. Her mom would also testify that she saw bruises and other injuries on her daughter all the time, including when Za'Zell was pregnant with their son. They were located on her back, side, and stomach. Her brother would also testify that he saw bruises on her face and body in both September and November of 2011. Each time, however, Za'Zell would allow William to pick her up from the hospital. It was also mentioned that her family could see a visible difference in her personality when William was around her. They said that she would completely shut down around him. Aside from all the chaos, they decided to get married in November of 2011, just one day before Za'Zell gave birth to their son. While in the hospital, the doctors noticed that she had a bruise on her face, and just 1 month after, on December 9th, 2011, she went back to the hospital in order to get the injury on the back of her head treated. The hospital staff grew suspicious and decided to report their findings to the authorities. However, when they confronted Za'Zell, she claimed that she was attacked by a random person and hit in the back of the head in an alleyway. She clearly stated that this was not a domestic violence issue. Just 1 week before Christmas Eve on the same year, her mom called to speak with her. When William heard her on the phone, he asked who she was talking to and demanded that she got off the phone. She quickly hung up on her mother but called her back from a store not too long after to let her know that he beat her once more. Her mom asked her grandmother to pick up her kids, and upon arrival, she found them in the garage. She directed the kids into the car, and the couple began arguing. Za'Zell began calling the police, but while doing so, William told her to remember what would happen if she did. so she then hung up. Not too long after, her grandmother had taken her Christmas shopping when William called her multiple times trying to find out where she was and what she was doing that took so long. Za'Zell began to cry because she grew very anxious, and she told her grandmother that she was terrified of him, and her grandmother told her that she would help her find somewhere else to live in order to escape him. When she arrived home, William refused to help her carry the kids' gifts that she had gotten upstairs because he was still angry. Unfortunately, this would be the last straw because on the night of Christmas Eve, a neighbor would report that they heard a loud noise that sounded like someone hit a piece of metal at around 1 a.m. When he looked out of the window, he saw William at the bottom of the stairs that led up to their apartment. He also saw William throw a tennis shoe up towards their apartment and that he was trying to lift up Za'Zell to carry her up the stairs. Another neighbor would testify that when they arrived home around 2 or 3 a.m., they didn't hear any arguing. It was 9 a.m. on Christmas morning when William would pick up the phone and call her mother. This was a very strange call because he seemed enraged and panicky. He claimed that they were drinking the night before and got into a heated argument when she accidentally fell on their glass table and hit her head. He also claimed that she fell down the stairs and she needed to come over right away to help. When the mom asked what he did to help her, he responded that he told her to go to sleep it off, but when he went to check on her, she wouldn't wake up. He then said that he proceeded to put her in a bathtub of cold water in order to try and wake her up, but when he pulled her out by her feet, she hit her head again, this time on the toilet. He stated that he needed to get her back into their bedroom so that she could breastfeed their newborn baby, but she wouldn't do it. The weirdest part of all is that he told her mother. He then dragged her to the living room and placed her on the sofa so that the children could open their Christmas gifts with their mom. He placed sunglasses on her and told the kids that she had gotten a little too drunk. The kids would later recall their mom's skin being cold and hard. This truly is so horrifying and traumatic for everyone in her family. The one day of year that kids sit with their parents and open gifts turned into a terrifying discovery. Her mother had more questions, and surprisingly, he would answer them. He told her mother that when she initially fell on her head, she did bleed, but he grabbed towels to stop the bleeding. When her mother asked to speak with her, he said he hadn't been able to wake her up since around 2 or 3 a.m., but that he would try and wake her up again. Something interesting to note is that he specifically said he needed to check if she was still breathing. If he assumed that the injuries would be bad enough to not be able to breathe, why wouldn't he take her to the hospital? This is because he was aware of the situation and intended on making sure that she was dead. He told her mother that when he checked on her, she had urinated on herself and had slobber all over her, which led her mom to respond that he needed to call an ambulance, but he refused. He oddly stated that he needed to leave the residence because his people were on their way to get him. He made it clear that he didn't care about the situation because he told her he hated her daughter and that she needed to pick up both her daughter and the kids. Imagine how chilling that phone call must have been for her mother to hear. Her mother then asked if her other kids could go by because she wouldn't be able to get there right away. He replied that he needed to leave and denied her request to send her other kids over. He did, however, agree for the grandmother to come by. Her mother contacted police and told the grandmother to go check on them. William then contacted her grandmother and told her the same story, but this time he said that Za'Zell was running away from him after biting him and fell down the concrete steps in their apartment complex. While on the phone with her, Za'Zell's cousin could hear their conversation and said, "What do you mean she's not breathing?" To which he responded, "I didn't touch your cousin, she's not breathing." When the cousin proceeded to ask why he didn't call the police or take her to the hospital, he said that he didn't touch her or put his hands on her. Later on, we're going to get into the psychology of people that abuse their partners, but just for now, note this narcissistic behavior. He's only interested in making sure that he is not the prime suspect, rather than worrying about the woman that gave birth to his child. It's also important to note that throughout these conversations with her family, he seems very cold and careless. He referred to her in third person and continuously had to make it known that he wasn't the one that did anything wrong. He was very selfish about the situation, and that is also shown when the cousin told him to call the paramedics, to which he responded that he refused to because he didn't want the children to be left alone and that they would take him to prison. Her cousin didn't let it go. She continued to tell him that he needed to call an ambulance and that their family was on the way there. He finally decided to call 911 and told them that his wife wasn't waking up because she had been drinking the night before and hit her head. He told them that he assumed maybe it was a concussion. The fire department and ambulance would remember getting to their apartment and seeing William at the top of the stairs, waiting to show them into the apartment. He reeked of alcohol and seemed to be very angry. He then saw Za'Zell sitting up on the sofa in their living room. Next to her was the broken glass table in a messy living room, as if a fight had occurred. Surprisingly, William angrily told the fire captain that he was mad that she had been drinking the night before, which then led to an argument. He then claimed that he decided to leave their apartment at around 5 a.m., and when he decided to come back, the kids wanted to open their presents, but Za'Zell was acting weird, so he decided to call for help. However, he didn't tell the fire captain that Za'Zell hit her head on the coffee table like he had told everyone else, or that she had fallen down the stairs. When the police began interviewing the family members, the grandmother said that he told her during their argument he tossed her around a little bit and she fell. The cousins said he also told her he slapped her just seconds before she hit her head the second time on their toilet. One of their neighbors would testify that she saw him hit her on multiple occasions, but he argued that she barely spoke English and that it was a misunderstanding. Crime scene investigators would note that there was lots of blood found in various locations around the apartment, including the kids' bathroom, which seemed to only be accessible by entering through the kids' bedroom. There was also blood on the other bathroom, the floors, walls, the tub, sink, and doors, along with the toilet rim and underneath the seat. The blood found inside the main bathroom was sent to the lab for testing and was found to be Za'Zell's. There was also diluted blood on the bathroom wall, and a broken door hinge was also mentioned. When they made their way to the master bedroom, they saw blood on the bed sheets, pillows, the wall, the baseboard close to the bed, and on a curtain panel. They also found lots of medical gauze on the floor in their bedroom. Another notable discovery was the hole in the wall found near the closet along with the blood-stained mattress. The stains were seen on the bottom of the mattress. Once again, the blood was analyzed and confirmed to be Za'Zell's. Sadly, there was also blood found on the sheets in the baby crib, along with her clothing found on the floor. Could she have gotten up in between the fighting to check on her baby like she once did before? That thought is very chilling and sad to think about, and shows how good of a mother she was. Something that stuck out to me is that when she was being treated, none of her clothes had blood, meaning that she had been changed before their arrival. While continuing to check the apartment, they found more evidence, including bloody footprints that led from their living room to their bedroom, along with blood smears on light switches and damaged doors throughout the home. They also found their mop in the kitchen sink, along with a bottle of cleaning solution on the counter, which is never a good sign. There was oddly no blood found on the glass table, but William's blood was found on a light switch. When they checked his body for injuries, they didn't find any blood or wounds on his hands, but they did find blood on his pants, shoes, and left ear. Her autopsy would show that she had 4 blunt force injuries to her face and a laceration above her right eye, along with 2 blunt force injuries to the back of her head. One was a laceration and the other was a hematoma. There were bruises on her arm, but no cuts were on her back. This doesn't add up with William's story, because if she would have fallen into the glass table like he claimed, her back would have lots of cuts on her upper back. It was also noted that every injury inflicted to her face, body, and head occurred at the same time, meaning she didn't fall as he claimed. Her cause of death was hemorrhaging inside her brain due to the blunt force trauma to her head. She died just a few hours after suffering from her injuries. The time of death wasn't able to be determined, along with what exactly caused her death due to the amount of injuries. As for her blood alcohol level, it was determined to be 0.8% at the time of her death. William's was 0.9%. Both of these levels are very high and are considered to make you legally impaired. Officers then interviewed one of Za'Zell's daughters, who was 8 years old at the time of the murder. She remembered being in her room with her other siblings when she saw her mom and William leave around 9 p.m. She heard arguing early in the morning and came out of her room to go to the living room when she saw her mom fall into the glass table. William told her that her mom was drunk and that she needed to go back to sleep. She believed that he gave her mom too much to drink. She would also tell them that she saw William punch and kick her mom, Her mom would try and block her face, but he would throw her onto the floor and kick her multiple times, including in her stomach. She recalled another time when he hit her mom and slammed her hand into the trunk after hitting her leg with a crutch. Another really sad part of the case is that she also said after her mom fell into the table, she helped her get the glass out of her back and got her into a bathtub. William then came in and tried to get her out of the tub when she ended up hitting her head on the toilet. She then wiped blood off of her and helped her into her new clothes. William then said he was taking her to bed, but when she woke up to check on her mom, she wasn't breathing, and when she tried to wake him up to take her to the hospital, he wouldn't. I felt what she was saying on a personal level because my mom was in an abusive relationship when I was younger, and it was very traumatizing seeing her hurt. Seeing your mom bleed and in pain is one of the scariest feelings there is. Could you imagine seeing your mom go through everything that Za'Zell went through? She testified when she was just 17 years old and made it known that she wanted William to stay in prison. Luckily, all of the evidence and testimony led to a guilty verdict, and on April 7, 2021, he was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison after being convicted of second-degree murder. Za'Zell was just 26 years old when she died and left behind 3 kids, one being a newborn from William. Unfortunately, a lot of people in my life have been in abusive relationships, and I've seen injuries firsthand. To anyone that hasn't been in a situation like this, it may seem easy to just get up and leave, but it can be very stressful for victims to do so for multiple reasons, including fear, shame, lack of resources, a disability, etc. You may be wondering what makes an abuser, so now we're going to get into the psychology of it all. There are lots of factors that we won't be able to cover in just this one episode. I will get into a few things, and later on we will discuss some more. If someone was abused as a child, like we've learned about in other cases, they may carry those habits into their adult lives because they think it's okay. Before we continue, however, I wasn't able to find anything about William's childhood, so we'll have to just speculate as to what we think may have caused this behavior. Another big contributing factor are personality traits. For example, low self-esteem, lack of empathy, narcissism, etc., which we see in this case because Williams always needed to know where she was and what she was doing. He also didn't show any signs of sympathy before or after her death. As I mentioned previously, there are lots of other factors, but for the sake of time, we'll stick with those. I truly hope that her family and kids are able to feel that they got some sense of justice and that this doesn't hurt their lives and especially their holidays. If you or anyone you know has experienced domestic violence, you can contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-7233 or text START to 88788. I'll also link their website that has an online chat feature, and these are all free. You're also more than welcome to message me through my personal Instagram at Annalisa or the podcast Instagram at Murder Tapes Podcast, as I'm more than happy to listen. And if anyone listening is currently going through an abusive relationship, please remember that you deserve to be treated with respect and care. It always pains me deeply to read about these cases because a lot of women aren't taken seriously by law enforcement, and a lot of people think because they stay that they may deserve it, and it's just a horrible cycle that keeps repeating itself. So we need to make these resources more available for people, make sure that it's free, and make sure that there's always helpful resources put in place for people to be able to go to and feel comfortable to go to without being judged. I did also just want to say again, thank you so much for your continuous support. Once again, our Instagram is at Murder Tapes Podcast, or you can follow my personal Instagram if you're interested. It's at Annalisa. As always, you can find everything in the show notes, and I hope to see you on the next one. Thank you so much for listening.